let's just sew whatever. I feel like the background of this video right now is like an I Spy situation. But anyway, welcome to making the Taylor Tote exterior style 2, which is this piece together panel, and interior style 1-ish. I had an absolute blast making this bag. The colors look delicious. I love the way this fabric looks. Oh, a light just died. That's fun. It was perfect timing because this was kind of washed out. What? Love the way this turned out. I'm so thrilled with this pattern and I hope you enjoy making it with me. If you are not already, I would love it if you would subscribe, and I would love it if you would remind me that I need to rivet these handles on and add a zipper end because I'm not doing it right now. We are going to get started by following the pattern in order. I've got it pulled up on my phone here. If you are making exterior style number 2 and interior style number 1, this is going to be the video for you to watch. So for the handles, I'm starting out by folding the long raw edges in towards the center. And I don't press them up right against each other. I give myself like literally a 1/16 of an inch, like just barely right there. And I'm just gently pressing. I'm not stretching it in any one direction. I'm just tapping and pressing. If you would like to make your handles longer, you definitely can. For the pattern, I have them set to 23 inches, which is kind of awkward. It's not quite over the shoulder, but it's a nice arm crook / grab handle length, and it looks proportionate to the bag, which is important to me. So if you need to make those handles longer, please feel free to do so. Just know that it won't look quite as proportionate. This is meant to be more of like a work bag / laptop bag, but can also look nice as like a handbag too. So I'm going to start one side and I'm going around all 4 sides. My stitch length is at about a 4.5. I like to do anywhere from a 4.5 to a 5 for my bag. And sometimes if I'm feeling lazy and I don't want to change my stitch length over and over again, I'll just leave it at 4.5 for construction and top stitch. I really don't recommend anything under a 4 for top stitch. It's going to take longer and it doesn't look as nice, in my opinion. So I go from one corner, pivot to the next to finish off that handle. And then any excess fabric hanging over those edges, I'm just going to take a sharp pair of scissors and cut that down. If you want to, you can edge coat that or add a strap end. I feel like I used to add strap ends and lately I'm just like, I don't think it makes or breaks the bag that much, but you can see how nice that top stitch looks. And then we're really just gonna set the handles aside for now, but it's one of those things, you've got a fresh bobbin. May as well get them done and out of the way. Have tos before the want tos. Love it. Okay. So now we're going to move on to our strap connectors. There could be 4 of these and up to 6 of these, depending on if you're adding the strap connectors, your crossbody strap connectors, etc. So sometimes I like to just tape them all at once, or sometimes I'll just do 3 and 3. I don't have a center mark on these. You can if you want, but these should be 2 inches wide and 3 inches long, and we're going to fold them to be 1 inch in width. I keep trying to play with different camera angles, and I'm always looking for y'all's feedback on what you prefer. I like above view because when I edit the video, I don't have to look at myself and my weird like double chins. Not that I'm self-conscious about my double chins, it is what it is, but I'm like, I just don't want to see it. But I understand people feel like they can see more from this angle, so. I don't know. Sometimes I'll do a little back stitch in between so that later on, like those stitches don't come loose. And then I'll go ahead and cut all of these apart and just get rid of any excess threads. I like to sew them in a line like this because then I'm wasting less thread, taking less time, etc. And then save those baggies. I'm gonna grab my D-rings that are 1 inch and my square rings that are 1 inch. If you're using webbing or you want thinner or wider handles, you can adjust those measurements as needed. But we're going to slide your square rings and D-rings through and set aside for now. Clip them or tape them if you want. You may decide that if you're using a domestic machine, you would prefer to use fabric for these connectors, which totally, you can do that. You can use whatever fabric or webbing you would like. Okay. So I like having those just all prepped and ready to go, but now we're gonna move on to our main panel slip pockets. So I have already gone ahead and clipped these together. These are 2 pieces that we're going to be sewing together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which I realize is kind of small, but it gives us the most pocket possible. If you want to do something closer to a 3/8 inch seam allowance for this part, you totally can. And I'm going to be doing that same, like feeding this through one after the other. If you would prefer to only have 1 slip pocket or even no slip pocket, you absolutely can. With that 1/4 inch, we actually don't even need to trim anything, so that's kind of nice. No wasted fabric. Turn this right side out. And then we're only going to top stitch the top edge. And yeah, I was going to say there's a dirty side to this fabric because I'm just using scraps. So I'm rolling this seam. If you want to press the fabric with an iron, you can. If you're using vinyl, you can't do that. But I don't want to see any of my lining fabric poking up. So I'm rolling it down just a tiny, tiny bit. You don't want to go too far or you're gonna see the lining fabric on the bottom. So just be careful, be mindful of that. Oh. Pressing all that open. Okay, so now we're going to grab our middle panel piece and our side panel piece. So it's a plethora of pieces that we're going to be using here. So I've got 2 sets of side panels, my middle panels, and then those pockets. I'm also going to grab a 1-inch ruler because we're placing these pockets up 1 inch from the bottom edge. And I've got this print, and I want to make sure that where I'm placing the pocket, it doesn't look bad or like a weird repeat. Ah, that looks great. I like it a lot. All right. So I'm just going to do one at a time. This, like I said, is going to be 1 inch up from the bottom. So I'm just going to lay my 1-inch ruler, press the bottom seam to the bottom of the pocket, and then clip it in place and baste around those edges. Oop. Let's see how far this is from the top edge. So it should be 3.5 inches, give or take. If it's not like at 3.5 inches, you could kind of adjust it just a teeny tiny bit. So I'm gonna do a quick sew around at 1/8 of an inch. These pieces get attached at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which I realize is not a ton, but I didn't want to make a whole new set of pattern pieces, and like a 1/4 inch is still good. So that means you really want to make sure that you're back stitching those pockets on well so that they don't move after a while. Okay. If for some reason you need a pocket with a little more of a 3D effect, you could cut this a little bit wider at the top, maybe by like 1/2 inch, and then bring the edges up so that the pocket like naturally sits open. But I don't know that I'd be a fan of that. This has some security to it because it's not a gaping pocket, you know? So you do see that bottom row of stitching, so make sure that you take care to line it up nicely. Someone told me that they are left-handed, and so they have a magnet on their light with their snips. But you could also put it on like the side of your machine over here. I thought that was interesting. Being that I'm not left-handed, I don't often think about left-handed capabilities, so I apologize. All right, we're gonna line up. These are like bookends basically. So you figure this is this side, you want the curve at the bottom on the outside corner. So you're gonna fold these right sides together, and that's gonna be where you sew that piece down. Again, that's a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I realize that's not very big, not very forgiving, but you got this. Make sure that the corner is at the bottom and all the straight sides are at the top, so that's where your pocket is. Make sure those are lined up. And 1/4 inch seam allowance. You're gonna be following like right next to that seam allowance, or that interfacing. I like to backstitch when I start, backstitch at the end. And then we're gonna open this up and top stitch. And you want to be top stitching on the vinyl, not through the pocket, or you're gonna have a weak thread, a weak spot in the bag, basically. That's what that's looking like so far, and then we'll grab the other side, the other book end. Line up those bottom edges and top edges. This 1/4 inch seam allowance also gives you like maximum room for your phone to sit, etc. And if you are worried about your pocket holding up over time, you can also do a little back stitching, or you could do like another quick row of stitching at the top of your pocket. But I think it would hold up pretty well. And we're just gonna fold that open so that we're sewing through our accent panel onto the lower side panel. No, what is it called? The sectioned side and main panel. Center main panel. It's a lot of words, y'all. But like, get out of here. Stop it. It's so pretty. And there's the back, so our interfacing is just like so perfectly lined up that there is no weak spot in the bag, basically. So before I move on, I'm gonna go ahead and like just make a little center snip at the bottom of this panel so that later on I know that's the center. And to make sure that your top stitching is consistent, instead of following the, like watching the fabric, I would recommend watching like the inner edge of your foot, depending on what you're using. You don't want to necessarily, you don't want to be watching your needle. You want to watch where your foot is. So like for me, I'm watching the inner edge of that foot. It's a small little window, but like I know that that's my 1/4 inch. And then we'll open this up. And again, I've got the edge of my fabric lined up with the edge of my inner foot. That could vary for your machine, but that's my little note. And then make sure that you're pressing your seam towards the accent panel if you are confident your machine can take it, because that's going to give you this nice folded, beautiful edge to that panel. So now if you want to add a nameplate, you can do it now. You can wait a minute. I'm just gonna grab one so I don't forget to do it, but I don't know if I want to add it just yet. We're gonna move on, and this is where we're gonna be adding our square rings. And these are gonna get lined up at the outside of that top stitched section. And it's up to you how you want to line that up. But I like to make sure that I have anywhere from 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch within my seam allowance, like over extending past that area. And then I just basted it about at 1/8 inch. So I lined that up just at the outside edge of my top stitched section. And my excess of that strap connector is overhanging the edge by about 1/2 inch. And I made these connectors longer so that you can decide what your machine can and cannot handle with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So they are facing down because we're going to be adding our upper main panel here. We're going to repeat adding the square rings to the other side. I had to trim down my lower panel because the top accent didn't match up. And that's essentially because thicknesses of fabric can vary how much overhang and excess fabric you have, basically. So that's going to vary from machine to machine and the possibility of seam allowance issues. So just take a minute when you're done and trim the sides to match the lower lining panel. And then your upper panel will match a little bit better. There's still going to be a slight issue because of the height added by the bulk of your strap connectors, but you can just kind of gently stretch the vinyl, center that out, especially if it's a print, and lay that in place. And this is a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and so we've got that interfacing in place so that we can just follow along. We'll backstitch at the very beginning of the fabric and come forward over our strap connectors. And I've got a very skinny foot on my machine, so I know that I can get that 1/2 inch at those strap connectors. But if you are not confident, I would leave a 1/4 inch overhang on those connectors. And if you're not able to get that 1/2 inch seam allowance, you can fake it when you fold this panel to top stitch. You can kind of set your fabric to meet those stabilizer pieces. And we're going to be folding this up and top stitching through our lower panel, not the upper panel, because we want our strap connectors to be face up. So you can feel the interfacing through your fabric and literally just fold it to meet the size we need it to be. And if you know your machine's not going to be able to handle the bulk of that seam allowance and the strap connector, you can move those out just a little bit if you need to. And then backstitch at the end. So that is what the final result looks like. So we will repeat that on this side. I really like when there's just a little bit of vinyl showing for that connector. And then the reason I have so much overhang or excess fabric is so if you wanted to, you could even add a rivet through for extra stability if you don't necessarily trust your stitches. So I'm feeling through the fabric over that strap connector, pushing the fabric through, and then I know that I'm not going to be sewing through that connector at all, which is very important. Ugh, don't go in the trash. So like you can see here, I did not get quite there with that 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm just gonna fake it. So now you can pick your favorite side of the bag and add a nameplate if you would like. This is hard for me because the slip pocket, you don't want the nameplate in the way of that slip pocket basically. So it's a bit of a struggle. And we've got 4.5 inches on that main panel, so 2.25 is going to be our center. So I'm just going to do a teeny little mark, 2.25. And I'm going to add my nameplate 1 inch below that top panel, give or take. And then you can turn those in or out. And if you remember to cover it with some duct tape or something. Just to keep it safe. I know I hadn't been doing that for a while, but when I finally remembered, I was like, oh yeah, I like doing that. All right, we're gonna finish up the gusset now. So we need our side connector pieces, our D-ring connectors, bottom panel, and gusset pieces. This is fun. So we're gonna take our bottom panel and side gusset piece. And this is a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Next to, but not through. And then it's totally your call if you want to top stitch through your Decaville or through your side panel. I like the look of it on the side panel, but you could even decide that you want to butterfly open the seam and top stitch that way, and top stitch on both sides. You have that right. It's your bag, make it however you want. I'm going to find the center top here. This is where we're adding our D-ring connector. And this gets attached the same way as that front panel, where we're centering and leaving overhang. So I'm going to do 1/2 inch again for this overhang, and then just repeat on the other. And so what I'm doing here is I've got my center notch and the center of my connector where I folded it together, and that's what I'm kind of eyeballing, lining that up. And then 1/2 inch seam allowance to attach the side panel, the upper side panel. I'm gonna break a nail tonight. It just is what it is. They've gotten way too long. All right, and then this is going to get flipped up to top stitch. And yeah, if you want to add rivets through those connectors, you totally can. Now we're going to find our centers of the gusset by lining up pretty much all of those crucial points of sewing our accents together, side panels together, to find our center. If you would like to add purse feet, now would be the best time to do it. It is not a pattern requirement, however. Okay. Ooh, so excited. All right, we're gonna, now that we have found the center of our main panel and our gusset, I'm just gonna line those up and clip. And if you're worried about anything shifting, you could go ahead and do a quick little basting stitch. And then the other point we want to make sure we've got lined up are where our side panels join together and the top edge. I feel like it's a little more crucial that your side edges line up nicely than the top of the bag lining up nicely, because you could always fudge your seam allowance a little bit when you finish the bag, so long as you're following the stabilizer. And now this is another place where your fabric choices matter, because that is quite a bit of bulk, but it looks so nice. And now we're going to be folding our fabric to meet the gusset, like folding the gusset to meet the shape of the bag, and you may need to add just ever so gentle little snips in that gusset to make it fit just perfectly. And the way I clip these as best as possible is I will kind of push the fabric on the table and then slide it off the edge of the table so that I can hold the fabric and clip it at the same time while keeping everything lined up as I need it to be. Okay. So then just kind of squishing everything around, making sure it lines up nicely. My stitch length is still set to 4.5, half-inch seam allowance, back stitching at the top, coming over the side. And then sometimes I'll use my screwdriver to help me hold the curves in place and not sew through my fingernail or finger. And backstitch. And now I'm going to trim down my excess fabric, but pretty much only along the bottom curve. I don't really like to cut through any top stitched pieces. Wondered where the rest of that went. And I like to press open the seam and just do a quick basting stitch. Bonk. Now this is something I've thought about, and I think I even dreamt about it, honestly. If you didn't trim down your seam allowances and you wanted to like top stitch along the gusset, you could certainly try, but I don't know how good it would look. So we're just gonna repeat on the other side, and then our exterior is done. And for interior style 1, they're all pretty basic steps, so it's not a ton to do. The interior, of course, can be whatever you need it to be. So there's, of course, more than just 2 options. You could add 2 zipper pockets if you want. You could add 2 sets of cargo pockets and the center divider. Like, whatever your needs are in a bag, you can put in a bag, because you're making it. You do whatever you want. Again, so I've lined everything up and I'm pushing the fabric into the corner and just making little 1/4 inch to 1/8 inch relief snips. It fits nicely that you don't necessarily need to do it depending on your vinyl, but it's nice to just have it. And then I'm pushing and clipping, pushing into the edge of the fabric, clipping that in place. Oh, that was a funny noise. Damn you, Bobbin. I was just thinking, like, it's been a while since I dropped something on the floor. All right, lining our centers back up. Trim down. And sew that open. So that is the exterior completed. You can choose to finish this bag as a drop-in liner, which means you would then want to turn this right side out. Probably want to mark like a 1-inch line all the way around the edge of the bag, or if you trust your interfacing, you would just fold over this top edge to rest along the interfacing and then put your lining inside of it and then top stitch versus setting everything inside, sewing around and turning the bag. So totally up to you. I'm really happy with the amount of structure this bag has at the moment. It stands up on its own while not being super, super heavy, which is something I love about the Sofuse Plus that I used for it. But yeah, let's keep on sewing. Moving on to the interior. Gonna go in order these pattern pieces and work on the cargo slip pocket. I have decided to piece my cargo slip pocket together. So I'm just gonna use 1/4 of an inch seam allowance along the top edge, give or take. Actually did 3/8, that's my bad, it's fine. I'm gonna press this open. And top stitch. Along the top edge. I do have this folded so that you see just the smallest amount of my exterior along the top panel. But yeah, we want to, no matter what fabric we're using, fold it in half and top stitch all the way across the top edge. You could do it once or twice, whatever your preference. And now we're gonna take this with lining side face up. We're gonna find our center. And this panel does end up being a little bit bigger than your lining, which is good. You've got room for error. But I can see my center line. And we're gonna lay the ruler face up next to the center line and then fold the ruler over top. Pull it out. Make sure the top and bottom are lined up nicely. And top stitch at 1/8 of an inch. Eighth of an inch, quarter, whatever works for you and your machine. And then once again, we'll find that center line. If you have trouble seeing it, it couldn't hurt to mark it with an erasable pen. But lining side is still face up. We found our center, the 1-inch line. You can see this isn't quite lined up, so you want to stretch the pocket you've already top stitched. You want that to lay flat so that you know that the next side you do is as flat as possible. All right. Ooh, it's so pretty. And now one of our lining panels. And now I did not interface my lining panels. I'm using a waterproof cotton, which has a good amount of density already. So I didn't want to overwhelm the bag with additional interfacing. And I've already marked my centers. Whew, go me. So I'm gonna line this up directly across the bottom, find those centers. If you have lost your center line, you can find it again by laying your ruler right up against that top stitched edge, folding it down and making a quick little mark. And if you're not sure if that's the center, find the mark, lining up your ruler against the other edge. And now Now that I've done that, I have 2 sets of lines that are about 1/4 of an inch apart from each other. But I'm okay with that because I am going to top stitch down those lines. I'm not sure if you can see, but I've got 1 line there, 1 line there. You can top stitch right over them or kind of like right next to, because this is going to be covered up and inside the bag anyway. But I'll just top stitch on it up to the line that I have already top stitched, and I'm going to reinforce the top of that pocket and then come back down. Sweet. So now you'll see the overhang on the edges, but what we're going to do is we're going to be bringing in and folding so this sits on top of itself on the lining. And this is a pretty forgiving pocket situation. We'll clip along the bottom where those edges are overhanging. And then this may want to like fold out, but don't let it. Bring in those corners and just kind of baste this on. Like right now I can feel through and see my curve, but if you need to flip it over after you've basted a little to top stitch it fully on, do it. Do it. So now I can trim my extra threads and all that extra fabric. Voila. Okay. So I can't do anything more to this side until I add my zipper panel, so I'm just going to set this aside for now. These are all my lining upper panels, so I'm just going to clip those together and set it in that pile. If you did not watch my cutting and interfacing video, I am going to be adding the divider pocket, but I'm not making it a center divider. So I'll be doing that after I complete these steps for the regular old lining. I've got my gusset pieces clipped together, setting that aside, and I just want my zipper pocket pieces at the moment. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm just taping my little label really quick. It's gonna go on my divider. All right, we did it. So now it is time for the zipper pocket overlay. If you have a preference for how to make a zipper pocket, do that. The pattern piece I've given is big enough to do just the standard, like mark out your box, 2 parallel lines, clip, etc. But I really enjoy a zipper overlay now. What can I say? I'm a zipper overlay lady now. And this is going to go 2.5 inches down from the center. So I've got my 2.5 inch ruler. And that's like 1.5 inches if you're using this one from each side. So what I like to do is press along the top first and then press everything down. Ugh. So now if you want to, you can cut away the fabric and then sew it, or you can sew it now. I'm gonna just sew it. Just gonna sew whatever. I really need to get more woven labels. I know that sounds really stupid because like I work at a place where I have a bunch of them, but I just keep forgetting to grab more. I think I'm gonna do this You Matter label. The colors are very pretty. I think the first person I saw do this was Lynn's over at Lynn's Handmade to add that little woven label, and it's just so cute. So you want to follow the outside edge at like 1/8 of an inch. Pivot. That is not as consistent as I would have liked it, but it's fine. I bought some embroidery scissors to cut out these overlays, those like duckbill, and I keep forgetting I have them. So I'll probably never do that. So just cut very carefully. I'm using a super sharp pair of scissors and I probably shouldn't. I like to get in a groove of being able to drag the scissors because they're only going to cut through the one layer if I'm dragging the scissors, hopefully, hypothetically. So there's that. And then I'm gonna grab my 11-inch zipper piece and one of my lining zipper pocket pieces. And with that face up, I'm gonna put my zipper pull off to the left and line up a raw edge of the zipper with the top of the pocket. And I just do a quick baste along the top and repeat that on the other side. So right sides are together for that zipper pocket lining. And then this is completely optional. I feel like it is a little silly because then you see 2 rows of stitching on the inside of the pocket, but I'm also not sticking my head inside the pocket. So really that's up to you. All right, 2 little pieces of double-sided tape go on the top edge, on the top edge, on the top edge. Like so. And I'm gonna peel the top first and then the bottom. But if you are new to doing this, I would not peel both pieces at once. I would just do one at a time. Eyeball it to be centered. Within the opening and press one layer at a time. And you want to make sure that the side edges of your zipper pocket are lined up with that overlay. And then I like to leave my zipper so long so that I can leave the zipper pull out of the way and zipped before I sew it in place. And then depending on the size of your zipper pull is how big of an opening you want to leave before you bring the zipper pull in. So like my pop tab pull, I can usually go from end to end, but this bigger rose pull, I don't have that much leeway, so I'm stopping like 1/4 of an inch before I pivot to bring that zipper pull in. Okay, and then I'm going to straighten all my layers back up. Hold on to the ends of your zipper. And then continue. And then pull your threads to the back however you like to do it. Ooh, that's so pretty. And then we're going to fold this down to match the other side. And cut. And we don't need to sew across the top. We just need to line up to the top edge. We don't need to sew across the top, just the sides. And it's totally up to you if you want to fold these open in opposite directions or fold up all at once. I don't think it matters. Let me try. I can't do it. I was going to, I had it, and then I'm not. And then a fun little trick I learned from Amber at the Crafty Reporter is to sew off of that at a bit of an angle so that you have more clearance for the corners of your pocket to sit, because there's a lot of bulk right there. We are turning this bag through that opening, but if you're making it a drop-in, you don't have to worry about it. I just realized I don't think I ever added into the pattern to sew the zipper pocket shut. So just made a little note. Maybe add that. Couldn't hurt. I am trimming down the excess just at the bottom. So pretty. I love it. I love this vinyl combo. And there's our pocket. All right. So now we would move on to our zipper panel and finishing the gusset. However, I'm going to be adding that divider pocket. And so before I move on, I'm going to take my longest piece of zipper tape and I'm going to prep it for my zipper panel by folding it so that the zipper trails off at like a 90-degree angle. And I like to just use a lighter to seal those together. So I've got my nail on the back side that I fold the zipper tape onto and line up the edge at the top. And then you can hold that with your fingers if you want, but I like to use the metal hair clip to hold in place, because I can also push down so that it meets up, and then trim off your excess. And if it's too hot, I just use the edge of my lighter to press them together. So there's that, ready to go in a minute. Ooh, I love this divider so much. So the one that I recently made myself, I have 2 zipper pulls on, and after some time trying to get my laptop in and out, I'm like, well, 1 zipper pull would be nice. So totally up to you. I think 2 looks so fancy. I love it, but 1 is probably better. And this is our 15-inch section of zipper tape, 15 or more. And I like the foam for this because it's gonna have a laptop in it, but I don't love how poofy it is. And I don't necessarily wanna just compress it and baste around the edges. So I'm just gonna do some little free motion doodly dads. Make a big old mess. No rhyme or reason, just having some fun. Throw that anywhere, I guess. Like, it's just so fun. Doesn't add a ton, but it really just compresses it that much more. Makes it so perfect for me. Wait. Oh, I'm gonna need the, oh no, my tag and my zipper. Hold, please. It's not trash. It's just so fun. Blobs, just like me. I'm really only gonna see one side of this pocket when I reach in the bag, so that's the one I'm gonna add this. Hi, coming in? Not a cat, just a ghost. I tried to like organize the area in front of me because it stresses me out when it's a mess. But here we are, still a mess. Just centering that with my elbows. It says, I love you so much. Okay, double-sided tape along the top edge of both of these pieces. And now this pocket is designed to be smaller than the panel, and I'm just now remembering that, so fingers crossed it looks okay. And then I also need to think, okay, it's going to be sitting on the panel, like it's going to be overlaying my zipper panel. Oh, wrong one. Where'd you go? Where did you come from? Where did you go? Okay. So depending on which way you want your zipper pulls to be facing, you're going to adjust accordingly. And I'm lining up one raw edge of my zipper and letting it overhang by like a quarter of an inch. No, like an eighth of an inch. Just press that in place. I normally like to cut my zipper tape quite a bit longer, but I know some people don't. No worries. All right, lining. Line up the top edge. We're basically just making a large zipper pocket with a raw edge. So it's a 3/8 inch seam allowance along the top. And I will sew through my exterior and my lining. You could also choose to quilt through both layers if you want. Like once you've got your zipper installed, you could quilt through your exterior and your lining. I'm gonna add this to the other side. Lining up my zipper along the top. And I'm just gently pressing that in place. I don't want to apply a lot of pressure or it'll wonkify my zipper. I'm glad I did this like fun quilting because it matches my top stitching right now. Very fun, wonky, free flowing. It's fine. It's fine. All right, and then for all of these layers, we're just gonna set this right sides together, and you want your zipper teeth to basically sit on top of each other. Bring your zipper pull in and line up those layers. And we're gonna sew it all together. And then trim down any excess. It's less impressive with only one zipper pull, but it looks pretty. I like it. I like it a lot. You could even just add binding to this and call it a day. Here's a cute zipper pouch. Oh, a laptop sleeve. Why haven't I ever made one? Probably because I'd never remember to put it in there. Okay, we're getting close to the end. Like I said, I'm not doing the divider for this one. I'm going to be laying this on top, trying something new. This completely covers my zipper pocket, but I'm okay with it. But am I okay? Yeah, because I'm not putting my laptop up against my zipper. Okay, great. So I'll base this down. I am curious to see how this changes the shape of the bag, because like you'll have so much against one side. Like how will it look in the gusset in the bag? You can see like we've really covered up our gorgeous zipper pocket, but I was prepared for that. And this could be a nice little place to put documents or something. Unzip your zippers halfway, just about. And we'll set this aside. I'm gonna work on the zipper panel. God, I feel like this is like, why do I wait for this till the end? Because I'm like, I just want it done. All right, we've got a ruler and some double-sided tape, which I feel like I've been doing more and more taping versus sewing. Okay with it, but so I lined up my 1-inch ruler from the raw edge, short edge, lining up my tape right underneath it within the 1-inch line and folding it up 1/2 inch to meet the 1-inch line. So that you have a finished edge. You can do this one at a time. It's probably more perfectly accurate. The time is now 11 p.m. on a Wednesday. Boy, am I tired. Oop. Hey, what happened? What did you do? All right. And then after this, we're gonna need 1/8 inch wide double-sided tape and our zipper. I'm also gonna pull these apart. And the double-sided tape is gonna go on either side of the opening where your zipper is gonna go. And I like to start it like 1/4 inch from each side, like from each short edge, like that. So that's where our zipper will go. Your zipper will be trailing off, so you don't necessarily need to worry about how far down the tape does or doesn't go. You just want to worry about where your zipper starts. If you decided to add interfacing to your zipper panel, Make sure you've got it attached. And then starting the zipper about 1/4 of an inch, anywhere from 1/4 and 1/8 from the top edge of that panel, we'll lay that down. And then if you would like to baste it in place, you can. I'm using double-sided tape, so I don't need to. And I can just place that with right sides together. And now if you find that your lining and your exterior aren't quite meeting up, you can either reposition or you can peel up your tape a little bit and refold it down so that it's matching better. And then I start the stitching here about 1/8 of an inch in from the edge. And then it's a 3/8 inch seam allowance, or about as close as you can get to your zipper tape. If you don't run out of bobbin. Man, this might be like a 4 bobbin bag if you're doing handles, etc., etc. The quilting on the pocket takes up a lot of thread too. And then for this, we're going to press it open so that right sides are out, wrong sides are together. And now this is another area you can decide, do I need interfacing? Because if your panel's not feeling very sturdy at this point, you may want to add some. I think this feels pretty good. The seam allowances give a bit of a boning to it, so that adds a lot of structure right there. And then these corners may have a bit of bulk, so just go slow. Use a hump jumper if you need to. And then I'm pulling my zipper out of that seam so it's nice and straight, and using just like a screwdriver or stiletto to press into the corner so everything stays lined up. So this is where you could insert some stabilizer or interfacing, but I do like to make sure I sew that shut so that my layers don't shift when we sew it into the bag. So yeah, you can see this has really good structure. It's not like floppy on itself. And like, I've made hundreds of zipper panels, so if this takes you a very long time, I understand. I have been there. It's just like muscle memory for me at this point. And then once I know it's lined up, I like to unzip my zipper at this point. Make sure you've got something to keep it from coming off. And I'm folding those open. I'm lining them all up. And then it doesn't hurt to zip it back up, just so you know that everything is lined up. And then pull. Look at that. Beautiful. Fold it in half to find your center or measure. Do any of you not trust folding in half? Do you just measure with a ruler? Because, like, woo, God bless. That's dedication. I'm so excited. Okay. We're gonna add that to one side. I've got my zippers going in the same direction across this entire panel, so I'm gonna go ahead and base this, stay stitch it. To there, and repeat that on the other side. Oh wait, top panel first. Ooh, it's my favorite part of the bag when there's like very few pieces left and you're just like, oh yeah, I am gonna be done soon. I'm really curious how this is gonna look. I don't know if I'm gonna recommend adding the divider to the side like this or not. All right, we've got our upper panel getting attached, 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then we're gonna press this up. So we're top stitching underneath our zipper panel. And make sure that your zipper pocket, etc., is all situated nicely. And so you'll see the zipper panel sits up a little perkier. Look at this. I thought this print would be a little overwhelming in the lining, but it's really nice. I like it. That's good, Lauren, because you designed it. I'd hope you like it. I hope you like it. And then again, we want to flip this up, top stitch underneath. It's a lot of bag. And we shouldn't be sewing through anything. We shouldn't be, but never hurts to double check. And now that's ready. If you haven't yet found the center of your panels, do so. But that's what that's looking like. Looking like a snack if you ask me. And you didn't, so there's that. Okay. So, gusset is just like the exterior, and this is for interior option 1 without the center divider. And you can choose to top stitch through the base or the side panel, whatever floats your boat. I think I have side panel, but I kind of like to do the base on the lining, not gonna lie. And now we're gonna add our top side panels. If your print is directional, keep that in mind and go face down. So lay them together and go, okay, yep, I like that. And then face down, like it's fallen over onto the floor. Next to, but not through, that interfacing. I know that's upside down, but I'm okay with that. So, fall over, face down. Now the pattern does call for exterior pieces along the lining. You don't have to. You can make it the interior like I've done, but again, like, it's so hard to word that. But you do want to fold this down and top stitch along the lower part of that gusset side panel. That just keeps it consistent looking with the exterior and the other part of your lining, which, I mean, you technically don't see, but it looks nice. It also keeps the bulk away from the top of your bag, because if you flipped that up, you'd be adding that to the top panel, which you don't really want to do. So we'll fold this in half to find our centers, making sure everything looks good. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I always do that. I'm like, oh, it's almost done, and then I sit on my phone for too long. So I stopped myself before I went too crazy. So the zipper panel is a very tight fit. So it's totally your call if you would want to unzip it and then reattach your zipper when it's over. I'm just gonna line these bad boys up and maneuver around it and work with it. Find your top anchor points, match those up. Did I even grab clips? What in the heck? I just love that, like, you probably came here to watch a video of how the pattern says to make the bag, and this is my pattern, and I can't even follow the directions I gave. I'm like, no, I want to change it. No, I want to change it. Can't do it. Okay, snipping those curves. And I don't feel like you need to add a ton of snips to make it fit, or little cuts in the fabric, just a couple. And then this is gonna be where you start by following your interfacing at that 1/2 inch mark. But you may want to just slowly increase that as you get towards the lining so that it's a nice fit inside of your bag. As you get to the bottom with that Decaville, sew next to it as you would. Oh, got caught. And then go ahead and increase that seam allowance again. If you feel like you're about to get a little pucker, you can leave your needle in the fabric and then just kind of lift up and re-situate that curve and then continue on. Okay, and then readjust back to that 1/2 inch seam allowance and back stitch. And now I'm not going to cut my seams at the top. I am going to trim down like the lower bottom half of the lining. Especially at those curves, there's so much bulk since I added that pocket there. I'll just get rid of that. What I did not take into consideration until this very moment is the amount of weight that's going to be on this side of the bag when I have my laptop in it. So it's not going to like sit nicely on itself. It's gonna like naturally fall over. So that's not ideal, but like it is what it is. Oh God, what have I done? Oh, okay, nothing, it's fine. This was like sitting inside, so I was like, what did I sew that I shouldn't have? So at this point, let's say you unzipped your zipper for any reason, re-zip it to make sure that your zipper isn't twisted, anything like that. But we're gonna line up the other side. And I do like to sew with my gusset face up, so the main panel of the bag is face down on our machine. I feel like things sit better versus sewing in the round. Like instead of with a gusset face down, main panel face down. Go ahead and find your center again on the cargo pocket. And if instead of clipping you prefer to just do some quick little stay stitching, you can do that. Clipping my curves. Same thing with the seam allowance on this side. Start at half, increase slowly to maybe almost 5/8, especially in the curve. Come back when you start to get to the bottom. Just make sure that your curves don't get too wonky. All right. Trim down the lower half, especially that curve. Do not trim at the top half of that cargo pocket because we've now sewn that into place a couple of times, at least 2. So by trimming it away, you're decreasing the stability of it. So right there, don't do it. And then I'm going to unzip my zipper panel, but you can see how good it sits. And press open our seams. If you want to just iron that, you can, but I'm going to sew it open. Curse you. This is where you can decide, do I want this to be a drop-in lining, or do I want to try to turn this much bag? Ooh, it's so pretty inside. Ugh, I love it. It's so bright and fun. I love the pink inside the slip pocket, and you can see it has a lot of really great structure on its own. And we only have the bottom interfaced and those top side panels. So like, pretty good, pretty good. I am going to be flipping this right side out. And putting it inside our bag. Our bag. This is my bag. Although I don't know how many more of these I can make myself. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. I think this will be the 4th one I've made. 5th, technically, for myself. Unzip that zipper. And then whichever, I usually like my zipper pocket to be along the back of the bag. Just gonna flop that inside. But currently this doesn't feel over interfaced, so I think I'll be able to turn it pretty easily, and it's not super heavy. Like this might weigh like 1.5 pounds. That sounds like a lot. This is not a pound. Like 14 ounces. That sounds better. Keep in mind that zipper panel is perky. It's going to be up and in the way, so press it down inside the bag so that you're not sewing through it. Normally I would like butterfly my seams open and sew those together, but like I already did it by sewing them down, so it's very nice. And it just acts as a barrier to keep your stitches from coming undone when you turn the bag, etc. Again, press that zipper panel down. Like, it's perky, but you need to calm down. D-ring, make sure you press those down inside the bag. I think I said this in my other video, but I'm like, I should have riddled the video with Taylor Swift lyrics, but alas, I'm not going to. Perfect fit. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Use as many clips as you need to. You could tape it. You could even do some quick little stay stitches to keep anything from shifting. You can use your cylinder arm machine. I just used mine the other day and I do absolutely love it, but just for consistency and because it's 11 at night, I'm just gonna use this. So I'm making sure that I stop with my needle in the fabric and that I'm keeping all of those edges lined up. And I don't trim anything down, but I will pull my lining away from my exterior. Unzip my zipper. Ooh, that's right. This is actually a lot of bag to get through a zipper pocket. There's really no good way to leave a bigger opening though, especially with that Decaville, so it is what it is. Be a good drop in. Okay, grab the bottom like corner of your bag first. Don't try to pull what's closest out through that zipper pocket or you'll never get this bag turned. Push that through first. If you decided to interface this with foam, I highly recommend making it a drop-in. But it can be done. You can see I've got the lining or the exterior coming through first, and that's gonna make it a lot easier. I'm smooshing the heck out of this bag, but the SewFuse Plus can handle it. So what you're seeing here is my lining zipper pocket coming kind of undone. That's good. We want that. That means that what I'm trying to get through it is fitting. It's a great way to test your bag. And I kind of like, I'm not pulling from the same place the entire time. I'm pulling a lot of different places. So now I've got the bulk of the bag through. Once I know I've got my zipper pocket over that stuff, you just push it out. So I would give this a 4 out of 10 of difficulty to turn with the materials I've chosen. But I've also turned hundreds of bags at this point. Okay. I don't want to go too hard into turning my lining because of that divider. So I'm just going to take this time to press into my corners. I'm taking my hand as a fist and I'm pressing along those seams. We really don't sew through much of our interfacing, so if you're not confident in your fusing skills, take that into consideration. All right, pressing the lining into the bag. Oh my gosh, it's prettier than I could have imagined. See, like those curves, if you don't press them, they won't sit just right. Oops, whoo, that was close. All right, now this edge gets folded over and in. I'm kind of shimmying the bag to make sure everything is sitting as it should. Now, this is why I'm glad I did straps first, because at this point I was like, wait a minute, did I do my straps? Am I gonna have to do those still? Because I don't want to. You want to make sure that your seams, the seam of your lining is completely pulled down. Like I can feel in my top seam if something's not quite right. So I just pull to make sure it sits back inside the bag, and that's better. Once I have that done, I just like to push all those layers, zip the bag, see what's going on here. And like that panel sits so beautifully. And like the curves of the bag are so subtle that you almost don't even notice it's a curve. It almost sits like a square. All right, enough admiring. I'm gonna close my pocket. We also have to make our crossbody strap still. The crossbody strap is optional. It's not my favorite way to wear the bag. But it is nice to have the option, and I think it looks really nice. So if you did that little curved method on the corners, you'll notice when you like go to poke it in the bag, it just kind of like sits. It's not trying to like fight you. It just sits. It's so nice. Zip that up so I know I did it. And press the zipper panel down inside your bag. It's up to you if you want to lay it down this way to top stitch or if you want to rassle those layers and top stitch it in this direction. I'm gonna choose to rassle. And just make sure you're folding your zipper panel out of your way. You don't want to come this far to fail. I'm laughing to myself because of the zipper pocket thing, but also my good friend Tiffany messaged me and was like, so I know this is probably like common knowledge, but you never tell us to add an end to the zipper on the top of the bag. And I was like, oh my gosh. So basically, like, besides leaving the house, like in addition to leaving the house, I shouldn't be allowed to write patterns anymore. Just saying. Not for the foreseeable future, unattended. Bobbin gods, please shine down on me. I hear you clicking, but if you run out, if you leave, I will cry. Please don't run out of bobbin tonight. Pulling my threads to the back. I'll tie those off in a minute. Just want the bag to sit again. I don't know how I feel about the divider being on that side with all that foam. Don't forget to add your zipper end. Let's go ahead and clip the handles on. Like how I say clip them on, you're gonna wanna rivet them on, but I am too tired for that. And whatever you do, just make sure that you are consistent with which way your top stitched folded over edge goes. So like right now I have it facing the outside of the bag. You may choose that you want it on the inside, but for me, this will work for now. I'm gonna end up riveting those on. But we also want to finish our crossbody strap. But I just want to show you how those handles look on there. Oh, it's so pretty, so perfect. And like, it's got good structure. So cute. Phone fits perfectly there. But yeah, crossbody strap. I'm just using this woven webbing and 1.5 inch hardware. I'm gonna start with my zipper. Crossbody slide adjuster. We did it. Fold that over to prevent fraying. And do a box stitch or parallel lines, whatever you prefer. I do have this pretty long, but that's what's really nice about webbing is like, I feel like it's easier to make it size inclusive than vinyl straps because you're limited by the length. I mean, obviously we can add and section it together, but I just don't love the look of that. Okay, so make sure it's all sitting together flush. I'm gonna cut this nice and even. That's on the floor. And you can choose to cover that with vinyl or leather. Georgia Girl Stitches has some of the prettiest webbing and webbing strap pieces. I love her bags. Now I like want to run out of bobbin just to know where it was gonna do it. So just doing a quick box stitch. The hot pink thread isn't, it's like it's noticeable, but not an eyesore. So it's really fun. But that is it. Add your zipper end, rivet your handles on, but you have finished the tailor tote with the sectioned main panel. So this is exterior style 2 with interior style options of number 1, which are also included in number 2. So I basically did number 2. Anyway. I hope you enjoyed this pattern. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, let me know down below. And thank you so much for your support. I will see you next time. Bye.